morning. Welcome to the morning show with Chris and Mo here on Sports Empire Network. We thank you for making us a part of whatever your morning routine is. I am Chris, and of course, that is Mo. Mo, how are you doing this morning, sir?
Doing well on a Wednesday. Good morning to everybody out there, everybody in the chat. Appreciate you.
Mo, we are one day closer. Football is officially here tomorrow when the Kansas City Chiefs open things up with the Detroit Lions. But Mo, panic mode in Kansas City, and we've talked about this. Wide receiver number one, who isn't really a wide receiver, it's your tight end, Travis Kelce. He is injured, missed the first week of the season. The news coming out of Kansas City is that his ACL is intact, which is a good thing, Mo. But obviously, if we are talking about ACL potential injuries, this is something that could potentially linger a couple of weeks. No word yet about how long he is going to miss. It doesn't look like he is going to be playing on Thursday, though. Mo, so we have to ask as we open up the show today, before we even get to the headlines, how is this going to impact the Kansas City Chiefs, not only tomorrow in their opener against what is supposed to be a Detroit Lions team that is ready to win a division, but how is this going to impact them as they start their season with the holdout on the defensive side, with, not having a clear number one in the what? Mo, this is just another thing, right?
It's another chance, I guess. You can put a spin on it this way, Chris. If you're the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid, it's another opportunity for Patrick Mahomes to show you just how great he is, right? He can find a way to will this team and keep them solid, because I actually think when you're talking about that type of injury, it can be longer than the first game of the season. We might be talking about the first 2, 3, or 4 games of the season, because that's something you can't really play with. My guess is he's going to miss at least 2 or 3 games. So with your number one option in terms of receiving out, the guy, the defensive, they get into their coach, they get into their room, and everybody schemes to stop Travis Kelce. That's stop him, number one. Travis Kelce's ability to beat coverage and get separation, it opens things up for whoever the receivers are, right? And they struggled with that. Him being gone, it changes the way Patrick Mahomes looks downfield. To me, with Kelce being gone, now you're looking at a much shorter passing game. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to push the ball down the field nearly as much. I think you're going to see more of a dink and dunk type passing game. I think Patrick Mahomes will try to navigate and manage the clock more. And maybe, just maybe, the run game becomes a bigger part of Kansas City's offense. You've got to find a way to alleviate some pressure off of Patrick Mahomes. So I do think they attempt to establish the run more, but we're still talking about that young receiving corps. Someone had to step up when they had Travis Kelce. Now you're going to be out minus Travis Kelce. Who's that going to be? Right now, that receiving room is nothing but a bunch of question marks. But they're going to have to step up. If the Kansas City Chiefs are going to get off to the start that most of us projected them to get off to, somebody in that receiving corps, somebody is going to have to step up. They were already kind of in a hole, Chris, with Sean Jones being out, right? That's a big thing. That's your best defensive player. That's your impact guy that you can't scheme for because he finds a way to make plays. Now you're minus him, you're minus Kelce, and I'm sure Mahomes is probably the guy that's in, he's going around telling everybody, we're good, don't worry about it. And I think he really believes that. But I also think that as great as he is, overcoming not having Kelce for one game, I can see that. Overcoming not having Kelce for a sustained period of time, that's going to be a problem for Kansas City.
I mean, if you take a look at the first 4 games of the season for the Chiefs, obviously they open with the Lions tomorrow. Then they have the Jaguars. That is a team that many predict is going to win their division. So you have 2 division favorites coming in your first 2 games. And I'm not saying that either of these teams were going to be favorites to beat the Chiefs. But what I'm telling you is you don't have bottom feeders coming in to start the season off.
True.
You have a good defense in the Lions with an above average offense. You have what could be a really good offense with the Jacksonville Jaguars and an average defense coming in. Yeah, week 3, you get the Bears. And then week 4, you have the darling of the NFL, the New York Jets. So 3 of your first 4 weeks, not only are you playing good teams, but you're playing two really good quarterbacks in Lawrence and Rodgers. You're playing a above average quarterback in Jared Goff, and then you're playing the Bears. So to your point, if this is a 3 or 4 week injury, even if he's back, for the Jets game, what's he going to look like when he comes back? Because again, like you said, this is one of those injuries where you don't want to bring him back too soon, because if he does legitimately hurt it, it's catastrophic and he's gone for over a year. So you want to take your time. You want to make sure he's healthy. You want to make sure he's full strength. And yeah, if it was one game, Mo, they would figure it out, right? They would use the running game more. They would pull out a couple of tricks here and there, but you can't sustain that over a 3, 4, or 5 game stretch. He is your number one weapon for a reason. Travis Kelce's don't grow on trees. He is one of one when it comes to the tight end position. And that's no disrespect to Kittle or Andrews or Evan Ingram or TJ Hawkinson, who I think probably round out the top 5 conversation in tight ends.
Sure.
But it's 2 through 5. There is a huge gap between 1 and 2 in that tight end conversation, and that's what Travis Kelce does. So Kansas City fan this morning might say things, Mo, like, well, look what we did without Tyreek Hill. I get it. Tyreek is an elite wide receiver, but don't sit here and tell me that you lost an elite receiving option and replaced him with scrubs, because you still had Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce, Tyreek and Travis were 1 and 1A. Depending on what the situation was, it altered from game to game. But you still had a 1. You still kept Travis Kelce. And then you grew your confidence and you started to work in your other wide receivers. And I admit that I was surprised there wasn't a drop-off, Mo, but you still had a 1. Now you don't have a 1, at least not a true 1. Plus Chris Jones is still holding out. Plus we still have questions on your defensive side of the ball. Plus this is all happening 2 days before you kick off the season. So you already have a game plan in place. You've already installed your game plan.
Scrap that.
Right. You already know how you're going to attack that Lions defense. And now 2 days before, you lose your number one option on the offensive side. So I understand Chiefs fan being optimistic and saying we overcame Tyreek and Patrick can overcome anything. But Mo, there comes a point where you just can't overcome everything put in front of you.
And the injury that he has, Chris, like you said, when he comes back, football is a completely different animal than the NBA or any other sport. If he's not 100% and he takes a hit, like you said, that could be catastrophic for their season, for his career. It could be that impactful. So I don't see them rushing Travis Kelce back, even though I'm sure he's going to be going crazy wanting to get back in there, get on the field with his guys. They have to be smart and think about the bigger picture. The question is, though, with him out and with so much pressure going to be on Mahomes' shoulders, what will they look like week 5 if he's out for, let's say, the first few weeks of the season? What will their record look like? Because like you said, not every team coming at them immediately are, I guess, world beaters, but there's nobody out there that's just a Joe average team. They play the Bears, but let's not underestimate the Bears. Look, the Chiefs, one of their biggest bugaboos is they're not that stout defensively, even with Jones. So the question really will be like, what will their record be by the time we get to week 5 minus a Travis Kelce?
And Mo, if that record is 2-2, then now you're having a conversation of, well, hey, what can the Chargers do with a Chiefs slow start? Because if the Chiefs start off 2-2, and even if the Chargers start off 2-2, now it's a different ball game. Because if you're the Chargers, you're thinking the Chiefs are going to start off 4-0 or 3-1 because they're the Chiefs. That's what they do. So you're thinking you're going to be behind the 8 ball already a month into the season. But if a month in you're even, well, that just changes your entire perspective on things. Plus, you still have to play them twice. So, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, and I know that nothing has happened yet, but let's not pretend this isn't a thing, though. So we'll stop there, and we'll see how it shakes out tomorrow night, all right? Because all the Chiefs fans are saying, don't get too riled up. Well, we'll come back Friday morning, and we'll see where things stand. But, Mo, right now, I want to bring our first guest onto the show this morning. We're going to bring Jory on the show, and we're going to talk a little basketball.
Good morning, y'all. Good morning.
Good morning, Jory.
Hey, Jory, how are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. Getting ready to go in at about 10
All right.
o'clock, but I'm doing all right.
So let's start with this. Christian Wood signs a 2-year, $5.7 million deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. Mo, the Lakers are your team. Do you like the move?
He's a very talented offensive player. So I'm sure that Darvin Ham has a plan for him, a certain amount of minutes he wants him to play with. He's probably going to have him obviously as a six man, but he's probably going to want to leave LeBron in with him because he's the kind of guy that plays well off the ball. He's going to need somebody that can set him up. Even though he can put the ball on the floor a little bit, he gives you range. He gives you another long body offensively. Not much of a defensive presence. Everybody knows that about him, but he is a gifted scorer. So it's another weapon for LeBron to play with, especially in a pick and roll or pick and pop situation. So I like the signing, although I would say that if you look at his skill set and look at Rui Hachimura's skill set, they're almost the same player.
Jory, what do you think? Wood to the Lakers.
Right around the, yeah, I'm a Laker girl too, so I liked it, but I'm like, is there a way that you could put him on the court without him becoming a defensive liability? Because he is a liability on the defensive end. He don't play defense. He just do cardio and shoot balls. But that's neither here nor there. But I like what he can do. But like what Mo said, you're gonna have to put him with somebody who can get him the ball and who can defend accordingly to kind of cover up his gap of his lack of defense. To say that, because he is a good player off the ball. He is a good shooter. But the thing I like it for my team, but like what Mo said, his skill set is pretty much just we just paid Rui, and Rui's a better defender. So in that type of case, I don't see it where it makes sense, but I like shooters. I can't say no to a shooter.
Well, Jory, it's interesting you say that. You say you can't say no to a shooter. Can you say no to 36-year-old Danny Green? Coming off what I thought was going to be the retirement heap, but no, the man is still kicking. He signs a 1-year deal with, of all teams, the Philadelphia 76ers. Jory, can you make sense of this signing for Philly fans?
No, I feel bad for you because otherwise you have a pretty young, solid roster minus James Harden and his shenanigans. That's a whole nother thing for a whole nother day. But you have Joel Embiid, you have Maxey, Tobias Harris is still there, I believe. Yeah, you have a young core, but then you're gonna add a 36-year-old to it who's aging and who has slowed down. I mean, he could still shoot, but 76er fans should be looking at the front office like, what are you doing here? What are we doing here? The goal is to get younger and more athletic, not older and needing WD-40 for your joints. No.
Mo, you got some Danny Green love over there?
I have a lot of respect for Danny Green and what he's accomplished in his career. He's come up clutch multiple times with the Spurs. He's been big with the Raptors. Like he is a glue guy. He's a leader in the locker room. And I actually think that might be his main purpose with the Philadelphia 76ers. You're looking at a team who has the reigning MVP, but nobody would call the reigning MVP a leader. They wouldn't call James Harden, talented as he is, a leader. Tyrese Maxey, gifted, young, up and coming, but he's not ready to grab the mantle and be a leader. PJ Tucker is more of a role player, more of a tough guy, an enforcer. They're looking for more leadership, I think, within the locker room. I think Danny Green, the player, is not going to play nearly as much as he's going to lead in the locker room, maybe in practice. Just another voice to get into the head of the main players, of the core players on the Sixers. I don't really think they brought him there for his shooting, even though if he can still shoot at a high level, yes, it can help them. But I don't think the Danny Green signing makes the other contenders in the Eastern Conference shiver and go, oh, no, they got Danny Green. We're in trouble. I don't think it's that kind of signing. Like, if you were going to try to improve your roster, actually, you would have signed Christian Wood. that would have been a more impactful signing. So the Danny Green signing, that has to be more about his impact on the locker room.
Jory, do
I
you
hope
see
that
this being a benefit in the playoffs? The experience, the clutch shooting, do you see this impacting anything that they can do in a tight playoff game or a tight playoff series?
it can. I see it because he has that type of experience. He could tell, he can show the young players how this is how it's supposed to do, how we're supposed to behave and play in the playoff. In the playoffs, he can do that. My other question is he's going to help Joel and B stop all that crying and take accountability? Because I know Danny Green has taken accountability a few times in my recent memory. So his impact, like Bo said, it will probably be more towards the playoffs and not on the floor in the regular season, even though he will see some minutes. I can guarantee he will see some. As far as like in the playoffs, yeah, you're going to need a veteran who's been there before. I believe he has a championship. I could be wrong. Don't he have one with the Lakers? I could be wrong. But he has that experience, and he can show a team how to grow up in the playoffs instead of just having 4 good games and then the other 3 that are must-win games, they fall off. So, yeah.
So, Mo, pivoting to world basketball now, Team USA bounced back, okay? So everyone wanted to kill Steve Kerr the other day, but Team USA has a bounce back. Not only do they bounce back, they play probably their most decisive and convincing game of this tournament thus far, just running over Italy, basically from start to finish. But, Mo, coming out of that game, Mikal Bridges, he was the best player on the floor in that game and led Team USA to a victory. And Mo, we talk about this all the time because, you know, when a certain NBA player has a big game in the world tournament, then you have that fan base of their NBA team saying, whoa, wait a minute. If we can get this guy on a regular basis in the NBA, think of what we could be. Mo, what do you see from Mikal Bridges as he transitions back out of this tournament into the NBA? As far as the role that he is going to play in the NBA this season. Is this performance indicative of what he can be in the NBA? Is this something that's just going to work on the world stage and you don't see him having this kind of opportunity back in the NBA? What do you see for Bridges this season?
So I do think that when you look at Bridges and his skill set, he's already shown you that he's more than just a defender, because Phoenix used him as mostly a primary defender and a spot up shooter. And he's much more than that. They traded him for KD, looking for somebody who could give them 25 to 30 a night. He goes to Brooklyn and he averages around 25 points a game. He had already established himself as someone who can get buckets. He's a guy he's much more than what I think people projected him to be. And funny little side story to this, the Sixers traded him on draft night, but we'll let that go. I do think that Bridges has the ability to be a number one option. I'm not sure that him as your number one option, though, you can win a title. I think Bridges is a talented player. I think Bridges can be all NBA. I think he'll be a perennial all-star going forward. But to win a title in Brooklyn, I think you're going to need somebody as good or better than him for that to happen. So I project him to continue to elevate in his game to go to another level. And this is like a springboard for him, like you said, on the biggest stage. When you're talking about world basketball, I do think that Mikal Bridges is going to bounce off of this and go into next season. And he's probably going to be one of the leading scorers in the NBA. When you look at the Nets roster, they're not right with scores. They don't have a ton of scores. And between him, Cam Johnson, I think Dinwiddie is still there. That's a solid little core at the wing. But he's going to be the head. He's going to be the head of that snake. And I expect Bridges to have a big breakout season.
Jory, if he can go back to the NBA and kind of carry over some of this that we've seen from the world stage with the Nets, can he elevate the Nets? I'm not saying to a championship team, but can he elevate the Nets to the playoffs and potentially win a playoff series?
He can, but he's gonna need another with Mikal Bridges. He needs another solid person next to him that they can play off one another. So if the Nets, I know they're kind of going through it after the whole big three kind of fell out from under them. They're going through it right now. But the Nets, if they can get another good piece next to him, see, I'm not familiar with the Nets roster. I know Spencer Dinwiddie is still there. I know they got Cam Johnson. I'm just not too familiar with it. But if they can get another solid starter right next to him, maybe right next to him, yeah, they could win a playoff series. Championship, I'm not so sure. But what we've seen through the world stage, but just taking count that the talent is going to get a little bit harder in the NBA than on the world stage. But if he struggles a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised. But I do expect, if they gave him another piece, yeah, they'll go to at least a playoff spot or to play in at the minimum.
All right, Jory, before we get you out of here, the Tennessee Titans open up with the New Orleans Saints for week 1 of the NFL season. We know that you bleed Titans through and through, but we have to get your official game pick. Remember, the New Orleans Saints are supposed to dominate the NFC South. It's supposed to be a coming out party this season for Carr at quarterback. Jory, are the Titans going to come out of week 1 with a victory, or do you think they're going to struggle with the Saints?
I think we're going to be fine. My defense, the only real legit question I have would probably be my offensive line. But between my defense, my running game, because I have a two-headed monster at the running back position, my defense can go get the quarterback correct by the time he's finished. My defense could be top 5, just on the line. So I'm not worried about it. I do think it could be a close game, but I know how Mike Vrabel coaches in close games, so I'm definitely not betting against him on that one.
And Joe, I gotta say that the Titans' schedule to start the season off: Saints, Chargers, Browns, Bengals. They got a break with the Colts, but then they get the Ravens. So 5 of the first 6. It's no joke to start the season off for Tennessee this season.
That's why I'm just being quiet right now.
just taking it all in, Mo. Just taking it all in.
Taking it all in. Taking it week by week. Week by week.
That's a good fan.
I think we'll be fine.
All right, Joe. Well, as always, we appreciate you hopping on here, the morning show with us, talking basketball, talking Tennessee Titans, and we'll see you next time you're around here.
Yes, sir.
Have a good one, George.
Thank you for having me.
Mo, I didn't realize that Tennessee has a rough road to start off their schedule as well, especially in a situation where we don't know what we're getting from an older Ryan Tannehill. Like Jory said, the offensive line is a little bit banged up. So it's going to be interesting for Titan fans the first, month and a half of the season.
And I would be concerned because if the offensive line is banged up, then that's going to impact that two-headed monster you have at the running game. So if they can't establish the run early, they're going to struggle early in the season because they've got a tough schedule.
So, Mo, as we pivot to the Denver Broncos, and I found this interesting, and I was excited to talk to you about it on the show. Sean Payton has finally addressed the elephant in the room with Russell Wilson, and that elephant is Russell's image, Russell's brand. We've heard for the past 3 or 4 years that Russell isn't a guy that other players like. Other players think that he's fake. Other players think that he's too rah-rah. Other players think that he's too concerned with his public image and saying the right thing at the podium, and sometimes that gets in the way of the way that he's able to build relationships with his team. Now, he's not walking around with a yearbook or anything like that, but guys just think that he's kind of phony. And excuse me, Mo, we saw that when he went to Denver in the sense of it sucked. It was rough. And throughout all that, it was a lot of let's ride Bronco country. It was a lot of that rah-rah, pep talk. And, it wore. It wore on Bronco fan throughout the season because they just wanted to see something different from QB1 as opposed to the same generic kind of, positivity, glass completely full pep talk. And then we learned that Sean Payton basically, more or less, and by the way, we didn't learn through a reporter. We learned through Sean Payton's words himself. Sean Payton said that, he had a straightforward conversation with Russ where he basically asked him to stop effing kissing babies because he's not running for public office. And he needs to focus more on football as opposed to the brand of football that he's trying to put out there. So, Mo, I ask you, is Peyton right here? Russ is obviously a businessman. He has said in the past that he has aspirations much greater than his on-field accomplishments as an NFL quarterback. He wants to own a franchise, an NFL franchise. He has big business things that he wants to accomplish. So I get why he's building the brand of Russell Wilson, and other quarterbacks have done that as well. Tom Brady is a brand. His brand is actually named after him, TB12. Right. But Tom Brady also wins championships, and a lot of championships. So I guess while you're winning championships and you are by far the GOAT at your position, I guess you can focus a little bit on building your brand as well. But no one ever questioned whether or not the brand came first for Tom and winning came second. We all assumed winning was always at the forefront.
Right.
But now we're questioning that with Russell Wilson a little bit. So, Mo, where do you sit with this? Is Peyton out of line? Did you expect this from Sean Payton? Is this the truth serum that Russell Wilson needs?
So I don't think Sean Payton's out of line. I think that Sean Payton has a pulse of his team. Like, even though he's a new head coach, I think he knows what's going on, what's being said, what guys are mumbling about. That conversation is a conversation that needed to be had. Russell Wilson has been a terrific quarterback for over a decade, but he is one of those kind of guys that when you hear him speak, I don't care if it's a quick interview right after a game or he steps up to a podium, you will always get an answer. The problem with the answer is it's always generic. It's almost like an answer that he had in his pocket and he pulled it out. He's got an answer for every question, but you don't get a natural reaction from him. There's something about Russell Wilson, and I'll say this, when he starts speaking, there's something about him that's not genuine. It doesn't feel genuine. And I could be wrong. Sean Payton and everybody that thinks that way could be wrong. He really could be this rah-rah guy, this what do you call it? Glass more than half full guy that everything's going to be okay. Like you said, let's ride. We got this. But after the experience he went through last year in Denver, where everything kind of fell out from under his feet and he fell flat and he had gotten that big contract, he was the great hope. He was going to come to Denver with that defense, with that run game, and they were going to take over the AFC West and go on to the Super Bowl, and that never occurred. To me, Sean Payton speaking to him and saying what you said he said, if he really said that, that needed to be said. I don't have time for you and your brand. You and your brand, that's not about football. We're talking about football. Football comes first. And I think that's what he was trying to say. Like, you're not running for office, man. If you're pissed off, if you're upset, then say it. If a guy runs a wrong route, actually tell him, no, I meant for you to break that off. And vice versa, when guys talk to you a certain way, give them a genuine answer. Look, all guys want in any sport is to know that they can trust the guy that's in the locker room with them. And if you're the quarterback, you're supposed to be the leader of that football team, at least the leader of that offense. Guys have to be willing to follow you into the fire. I don't think guys question Russell Wilson's ability. I think they just question Russell Wilson as a person. It is a problem, right? Trust is a big thing in a locker room. And when he came to Denver, don't forget, the guy had his own office. Who goes to a new team and goes, yeah, I don't train with the rest of them. I've got my own team of trainers. I've got my own office. I'm separate from everybody else. Who does that and thinks that's going to end well? So I want him to play well. I hope he plays well. I do. I've been a fan for years. But I think that what Sean Payton said to him, that was so needed. Maybe it's something that Pete Carroll should have said to him. I don't know if he did or didn't, but it was needed. So I'm glad he said it.
Again, what solves all of this, Mo? Winning football games. If the Broncos come out and they start off 3-2, 4-2, 5-3, a lot of this nonsense with Russ, it's going to be subsided a little bit. If they come out and they start off 2-4 and he's still being rah Russ, then this may be the Russ's last season in Denver. I mean, I don't want to be making big swings like that, but Mo, I know they paid him a lot of money. But if Denver finishes under 500, who goes first, Peyton or Russ?
So normally you would say the franchise quarterback's not going anywhere, but he's a franchise quarterback who looks like he's at the end of his career. He needs Sean Payton. Sean Payton doesn't need him. Like, if they have a bad season, they're not firing Sean Payton. They're going to tell Sean Payton, like, we need to go out and get you a quarterback. So Russ is going to be gone. I will say this: if they start off 4-2 or 5-3, he's going to get that. He's going to get asked a question, and you're going to get a generic Russell Wilson answer. Did Sean Payton, Russ, we got to know that conversation you had with Sean when he told you, you're not running for office, that ignite a fire in you, did that motivate you or humble you? And Russ is going to go like, oh, no, I think what he was trying to say is let's ride, let's win, let's do this together. That's Russell Wilson. So you're going to get that generic phony answer no matter what. Now, if they lose, he'll be all quiet and humble, like, well, I could have played better. And
it's on me. It's all my fault.
It's all on me. He's very apologetic, like, it's on me. I'm the guy that everybody looks to, and I've got to lead this team, and blah, blah, blah. We've heard it. The funny thing is we complain about we've heard it all. Poor Sierra. She probably hears it all the time at home, too. Like, Jesus Christ, man, just stop talking.
Can you imagine just what their marital conversations are like? Oh, listen, I know I didn't get the bathroom clean, but I got this. All right. I got this.
Right. You go ahead. You and the kids go watch TV. I got this. Let's ride. I got this.
Ride.
Don't worry.
Bronco country. Let's go.
God. She must wear headphones a lot.
Before we jump into our next topic, shout out to the chat this morning. The chat is going strong. Jory's in the chat. Marlon's in the chat. Coach is in the chat. We got Dez in there. We got Freddie in there. We got Pal in the chat this morning. Key is in the chat this morning. If you're watching but you are not in the chat, jump into the chat. We want to hear your thoughts. Throw them out there. Even if we don't agree with you, we'll still talk to you about it. We're not horrible people over here, Mo.
No doubt.
Throw your thoughts in there. Talk to us a little bit. But Mo, let's pivot to college football a little bit. And it's interesting because, especially in college football, that the head coach is so important because obviously I'm not saying he's not in the NFL, just look at Nathaniel Hackett. But in college football, not only is the head coach leading your program, but he's also developing these young adults into young men. So there's that added element to it because you have kids entering these college programs at 18, 19 years old, and they're still doing things that kids do. By the time they get to the NFL, they're, 22, 23. They're a little bit older, and they still do dumb crap because 22 and 23-year-olds do that. But at least they're adults at that point, right? But when they're kids, there's that other element to it where you have to cultivate them and really kind of set them up for success. So I would argue in some facets, the college job is a little more intense as far as that goes because there's a side to it that you don't see in the NFL. But then you have a guy like Jim Harbaugh who comes out and, in my opinion, Mo, he almost kind of downgrades the importance of the head coach position when he comes out and let me give some context. He's got his 3-game suspension going on. And of course, every time he talks, people want to know, how are you going to get through the 3-game suspension? How's the team going to do this? How's the team going to do that? But what he does is he kind of downplays his importance. And he talks about how, guys, listen, we're not an offense. We're not a defense. You ready for this, Mo? We're a we-fence. Now, I don't know if Big Russ was talking to Coach Harbaugh and giving him some of that Russell Wilson juice, but we're a we-fence. Meaning, and I get what he's saying, Mo. He's saying that, it isn't just one guy running the show. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes. It's a collaborative effort. There's a lot of gears and cogs that have to move in unison to make this big ship that is Michigan football move forward. So I get it. I get why he's saying we're a we fence. I get why he's saying that I'm not just the ringleader here. There's other parts as well. But Mo, you're there for a reason, Coach Harbaugh. You are there because you are the guy they want leading that ship. And I understand you want to hype up the people around you while you're not there so they can get the job done. You can start off 3-0, hopefully. But let's be serious. The head coach for a college program is critically important. It really is. If you went to Nick Saban, Mo, and said, hey, Coach Saban, you guys a we-fence? No, they are not, Mo.
If you said that to Coach Saban, you're probably going to get tossed out of his office. Like I can appreciate that Jim Harbaugh always been a little wanky, for lack of a better word, a little off than most coaches. But when you stand into a young man's in a living room, talking to a young man's parents saying, I'm going to take care of him, right? Because he's got to do that. We forget that the coach doesn't just shape the team. You said it. You do have to cultivate the younger players, right? You do have to stand in front of his parents and say why they should trust him to look after their son. So the coach's role in college football is huge. You're not just coach, you're also a recruiter. You're the guy that oversees, hey, I found out you're not doing well in this class. We need to get that going. Like, you're responsible for so many things, but the idea that Harbaugh will kind of downplay that, look, I get it. He had a taste of that Russell Wilson sauce, because when you say something like that, I don't believe he believes that. It's not genuine. I don't think right now when you talk to guys like Coach Saban, and some of the other bigger names in college football, that they think it's on their assistants. They know it's on them, right? They are the spearhead of not just that football team, but they represent that university. It's so much bigger than just any one thing. So I like the we fence reference. It's kind of weird. It's wonky, but it goes with Harbaugh's personality. But if Michigan's going to compete for a national championship, they can't be a we fence. They're going to need Harbaugh out there coaching those guys, doing what he does. That will be the difference maker for Michigan, not the we fence theory.
And then Mo, he almost takes it to another level when you look at the fact that over the 3-game span where he's not able to coach because he's suspended, he has 4 different coaches coaching this team. So in week 1, with their, they had a really easy win against ECU, but their defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, he coached the game. They have UNLV in week 2, and they're actually splitting this game in half. Jay Harbaugh is going to coach one half of the game. Mike Hart is going to coach the second half of the game. And then in the 3rd week, for the final game of his suspension against Bowling Green, offensive coordinator Sharon, I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. I think it's Sharon, but could be Sharon. But Coach Moore is going to take over and coach game number 3. So again, I feel like you're almost literally being, unless his staff is that good, Mo, unless his staff is just that elite,
let's hope
that he essentially has 5 head coaches, 4 outside of himself on that staff. It just seems out of the box to me that you would set, because so much Mo, 2 coaches for one game. Like, what if things go a little weird in the first half against UNLV? Or what if things are going great and then you bring in a new head coach at halftime,
right.
And then things get like, what is he doing, Mo?
So to me, I really believe this is connected to his suspension. I really think Jim Harbaugh is just having fun, and it's okay to have fun and be silly and do things that most coaches would never do, as long as they win those games. It's because it's fun in games as long as they win those games. Should this all fall apart and they lose, let's say they get blown out by Bowling Green, it won't be funny anymore, and it won't be fun anymore. But I think that's what he's doing. I think he looked at the schedule. He's getting suspended, and he looked at the schedule and said, we're going to win in all these games anyway. We're going to win these games anyway. So why don't I have you coach a half, maybe you coach a whole game, and we'll see how it works out, guys. But I'm feeling good about it. And they're like, Coach, what are you talking about? He goes, no. defense.
We
Say it with
fence.
me. And that's what they did. To me, Jim Harbaugh, he's always been out of the box, right? He's different from other head coaches. He's different from his brother. I want to say he's kind of a mad scientist, but sometimes he's just mad.
100%. And I will say this though, Mo, his players do love him. A lot of his players were rocking free Harbaugh shirts this past week to show support of their suspended coach. But Mo, I digress a little bit, and let's kind of take a look here at the new top 25 rankings for heading into week 2 from the AP poll. So we were all wondering what was going to happen with Colorado, Mo. And Colorado jumps into the top 25. They are number 22. We'll start there, Mo. Do you think they should be considered a top 25 team after just 1 week? Do you think this is a little pandering, if you will, to the college football audience? What do you make of Colorado at number 22?
So I think it's both. That was such a big win for them. I mean, talk about a debut. That was a big coming out for them to win that and win in the fashion that they won. What an exciting game. For me, it's an overreaction, right? And maybe for the critics, they're like, yeah, go ahead, put him at number 22. Let's see what happens in game 2, 3, 4, and 5. Because I love Coach Prime, but I think there are a lot of doubters out there who are like, this guy's coming in and he won 1 game and he's telling all of us, you guys don't believe now, you're not getting on board now. And if they should fall, they're going to be there waiting for him. Like, you still believe? So I think it's great for college football that he's drawn that much attention to Colorado. And I do think eventually Colorado will be one of the contenders for the national championship. I don't think that's this year. I don't think, and this is not me rooting against Colorado, I don't think they're going to win 9 football games. I don't. That's just a harsh reality. So they might be top 25 now. They won't finish the season top 25.
Other teams of note, Mo, in the top 25. Duke was not rated coming into this past week. They jump up to number 21 after their victory. LSU falls down to number 14 after their loss. Florida State is up to number 4 after their big win over LSU. They move up from number 8. Ohio State drops from 3 to 5. The top 3 right now, Georgia and Michigan, 1 and 2. They remain at 1 and 2. Alabama moves up 1 spot to number 3. Other things of note, we have 2 2-0 teams here in the top 25, USC at 6 and Notre Dame at 10. USC stays at 6 despite being 2-0, and then Notre Dame moves up 3 spots from 13 to 10. Clemson tumbling down to number 25, Mo, 9 to 25. Is there a chance Clemson can turn things around, or is what we saw last week kind of indicative of what this team is probably going to be for the rest of the season? Just not middle of the road, nothing special, definitely not a national championship contender.
That game was hard to watch.
It was tough.
If you told me that was Dabo Swinney coaching, I would have been like, that's not Dabo. That's not the guy.
That's one of Harbaugh's guys. That's like his third assistant coach.
Right. So I that was hard to watch just as a fan. And maybe this is one of those things where they had a really good recruiting class, but they just didn't reach full potential. That happens sometimes. And maybe we could even say it was just 1 game. It was a one-off, but it was a really bad. I mean, they didn't lose like where it was a close game for whatever reason, and then they just faltered late. That was a really bad loss. But I do believe that Dabo Swinney is one of the better coaches in college football. I think he will right this ship. I think Clemson will be a solid football team. They're not going to be in the national championship picture, but I think they will get to a bowl when it's all said and done.
And in the chat, we have Coach Dante coming in big, defending the Colorado Buffaloes, talking about how it was absolutely a big win for that program. I agree, Coach. I agree that the national media said they were going to get blown out. Not many people gave them a chance to even be in that game, much less win that game.
Facts.
So I completely agree. Huge win for the program. Huge win for Coach Prime. I just don't know if they can sustain that and do that throughout the rest of the season. Because, Mo, week 1, you're going to get all that juice. You're going to get all that momentum. You're going to get all that hype. And then you get into the grind of the season, and college football really is one of those sports where it's talent heavy. And they have pieces on that team. I just don't think they have enough overall talent to really take out some of the bigger teams. And I do think part of this, and I'm sorry, TCU fan, I don't think TCU should have been ranked 17. I really, really don't. I think TCU was ranked higher than they should have been. I think that Colorado wasn't getting enough respect that they should have received. And this is the result of it. The result of it is a really close game with 2 really bad defenses. And that's what you get. So I think that TCU, we liked a little too much. I think Colorado, we didn't like enough. And here's where we end up in the end. I don't think either is going to accomplish anything special this season. Agree or disagree, Mo?
Look, I agree. And let me put it out there. I was honest. We were talking about the lead up to this a few shows back, and I said I thought TCU would win the game. Now, I didn't say they would blow out Colorado, but I thought they were the better football team. I thought they would win the game. So Colorado comes out and wins a dynamic game. My only thing is, are you going to be able to get up that high for the rest of the season? You know what I'm saying? Because TCU will not be your best opponent. It won't be. It's an opponent, but it won't be your best opponent. I just think that Colorado doesn't have the overall talent to go where a lot of people project them to go suddenly off of 1 win. You've got people talking about they're going to get up there into the top 5, top 6. I want that for Coach Prime. Truly, I do. But if I step away and just look, I just don't think when it's all said and done, they're going to soar that high. Not in year 1. I just don't think they have enough talent overall to achieve that.
And looking ahead to the college football schedule for this week, Mo, it looks like we have 2 ranked matchups. Number 3, Alabama versus number 11, Texas. Big game there for Texas. Big opportunity there for Texas. And then we also have number 20, Ole Miss at number 24, Tulane. And for all of your college football news, insights, highlights, projections, predictions, make sure you are tuning in to the Big Dogs here every Saturday morning on Sports Empire Network. They're going to set you up for your college football Saturday. They will recap anything that happened in the world of college football during the week, and they will prepare you for all the biggest matchups heading into every big Saturday. Every Saturday morning here on Sports Empire Network, it's the Big Dogs. And Mo, it was a good show for them last week.
Really enjoyed the show. Both guys are really sharp on top of it, very informative. I would tell anybody in the chat, anybody out there that's listening, that the Big Dog, you have the Big Dogs on campus. You have to check out that show. These guys are on point. They know anything and everything about college football. Really sharp show. Got to check it out.
All right, Mo, I wanted to close out today's show looking at some bold predictions. And I know that we make bold predictions all the time. So I was like, you know what? We're not going to make the bold predictions. We're going to react to other people's bold predictions. So a couple of days ago, The Ringer put out an article written by Shale Kapadia, and it was called 10 Boldish Predictions for the 2023 NFL season. So, Mo, let's just kind of go through this. And, all love to the author. We're not here to tear you apart. We just want to, give our intake on your bold predictions. And more importantly, we also want to hear what the chat has to say about these bold predictions. Sure. Because, me and Mo, we love to hear ourselves talk, but we want to hear you guys talk too. So offer us your insight as we go through these 10 boldest predictions for the 2023 NFL season, according to The Ringer. And Mo, we're going to start at 10, and we are going to work our way back to number 1. So let me scroll down here for a second. Number 10 says that the Arizona Cardinals will go into next year's draft with 2 of the top 5 picks in the draft. Is that a bold prediction, Mo?
Nah, I think that's a prediction that a lot of us think. I think we all look at Arizona and go, oh, yeah, they're going to do really well in the draft. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't think that's a bold prediction. I think that's an obvious prediction.
Now, the bold part of that is, aside from the Cardinals having their own draft pick, which, I think is going to be the number 1 draft pick. They also hold the Houston Texans first round draft pick. So if the Texans struggle this season, which I don't think they're going to be a terrible team, Mo.
I don't either.
But I don't think they're going to be a great team either. So I don't know if they're going to have 2 top 5 picks, but I definitely think they're going to have 2 top 10 picks. I think they're going to have their own pick, which is going to probably be a 1 or a 2, and then the Texans pick, which could be anywhere from like a 3 to a 9, and I wouldn't be very surprised.
Look, I think the Texans will be very competitive, but you are building your franchise around a young, talented rookie quarterback. I think the defense is really solid and stout, but I think the offense is going to struggle throughout the year. So let's say they're probably a couple games below 500 when it's all said and done, which is respectable to me when you look at how they're starting out. That's going to still be a high draft pick. So I'm not arguing. I don't doubt that Arizona is going to make out like bandits in the draft, but I think the Texans will be more competitive than most think.
Bold prediction number 9 on this list is that the Green Bay Packers, Mo, are going to the playoffs.
No.
Oh, he said no. He said no.
They're not.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
I don't think they have. Well, so I'm looking at Jordan Love, and everybody's bragging about how well he looked in the preseason and how the offense is built around him. I agree with everything they said. And then we're coming into the regular season. And I know the division isn't a world beater division. I think the Packers will be solid. Will they make the playoffs? I'm going to say no. I got them going under when it comes to making the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to win enough games to get to the playoffs.
Let me say this. I have a little more confidence in the Packers than I did a month ago. But I will only say the Packers will make the playoffs if the Lions are not what we think they are. If the Lions
That's a good point.
Drop the bag and they're an under 500 team, I think the Packers will sneak into a wild card. I don't think they're winning that division. I think that division belongs to either Detroit or Minnesota. I still think there is way too much disrespect for Kirk Cousins out there. I don't know why. The man does a tremendous job on the quarterbacks show, and we see how great of a human being he is. And now we want to say things like he might finish 3rd in his division. I don't understand, Mo. It's completely disrespectful. But not only is he a great quarterback, he is a great human being. And now all of a sudden we want to discredit his last 4 seasons or 5 seasons in Minnesota for no reason. Just because we think the Lions might be better. I agree. The Lions are going to compete for the division. I actually have the Lions winning the division. Not by much. I think it's either going to be a tiebreaker or they're going to win by 1 game. But I do not like this idea that for a team that, yeah, they lost Dalvin Cook. It is what it is. But aside from that, they're going to finish 3rd? Come on now, Mo. Come on.
Right. And remember, we like to point out that it's a quarterback-driven league, right?
We do.
Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in that division. He's the best quarterback in that division and one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC by far. So he's had some shortcomings in the playoffs, not a secret. But we're talking about winning the division or making the playoffs. He's been great at that. He's fine at that. So the idea that he's going to finish 3rd, I disagree. But you brought up an excellent point. If Detroit isn't what most of us project them to be, then I'll be wrong. Green Bay will make the playoffs. That's really what it comes down to. Detroit is either going to be everything we said they're going to be with all the additions they've made, the strides they've made as a team on both sides of the ball, or they're going to be a disappointment and the Packers will slide into a playoff spot.
Mo, over the last 3 years, one of the most consistent pass rushers in the NFL has been Myles Garrett. He has 44 sacks over the last 3 seasons, which actually does indeed lead the league over that time. Bold prediction number 8 is that he is going to break the single season sack record in 2023. Mo, what say you?
I say no. That's a hard record to break, bro. It really is. And Myles Garrett is a beast. He's a monster, but he hasn't had a lot of monster sack seasons. He's been very consistent and very productive. I just don't see that. It'd be exciting if it happened, but I don't really see that happening. Like that is a major that is a bold prediction to win that to get that sack record. And look, you have more games to do it in, right? There's that. but it's not easy to get sacks. They don't just come to you like that in bunches. So I'm gonna say he comes up short on that one.
Well, and you have to look at his division. Lamar Jackson is a mobile quarterback. You might be hitting him, but you're not hitting him in the backfield. You have Joe Burrow, who's not going to take sacks, even though his offensive line isn't, elite. He's going to throw the ball away. And then you have Kenny Pickett, who has a pretty good O-line in front of him. So that's 6 of your 17 games right there where I don't think you're stacking up sacks in your own division. So now you're trying to do it in the 11 games, outside of your division. And like you said, in the NFL today, with the exception of maybe Tua, who likes to hang on to the ball too damn much, guys are getting rid of the ball. They're not taking hits. So, and we don't have, Mo, the true pocket. We have a handful of pocket passers in the NFL today, but for the most part, you have an athletic enough group of guys where they can move 3 steps to the left or right to avoid taking a sack. Now, he might hit a buttload of quarterbacks this season.
And he will.
But like you said, getting a QB hit or QB knockdown and a QB sack are 2 different things. So I totally agree with you.
And let's not forget, he's the guy that teams scheme for, right? So he's the guy that they focus on. He's the guy that he's going to get chipped a lot by the tight ends. Like, he's not, I just don't think he's going to get the opportunity because he's going to be the focal point of the offense. They're going to attack him. They're not going to allow him to get those one-on-ones where he can dominate and get to your quarterback.
Bold prediction number 7, the Denver Broncos are going to make the playoffs. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
So, hey, I would like that to happen. I would. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. So it's a great bold prediction, but half the damn receiving room is in the hospital, or you know what I mean? Like they're just all beat up. Like when we joke about the Mike Evans thing, but we're not really joking. We're not really joking. Mike Evans wants out. They need a wide receiver. And look, he wouldn't just come there as a wide receiver. He'd be wide receiver number 1. But all of their top receivers, that core is beat up. Right now, Russell Wilson is set up to fail. Like, you're asking him to do more with less, and he struggled last year with those same guys. I'll say this. If Denver's defense is what it was last year, and Russ is just better at taking care of the football, never mind if he throws for 25 or 28 touchdowns, but he just does a better job of taking care of the football, the Broncos will have a shot, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
Well, if this was the NFC, I'm on board. If this was the NFC, you're playing against far less quarterback talent. You're playing against a lesser quality teams. I could see this Bronco team winning 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 games in the NFC and getting a wild card spot. Now you're looking at the AFC, where the field of quarterbacks is literally 10, 11, 12 guys deep. You're in a division where you're probably at best, well, no, let's be fair, the Raiders are garbage. You're the 3rd best team in your division, all right? Maybe you can challenge to be the 2nd best team. Maybe for some reason the Chargers take a step back. Their defense gets worse. It's not jiving on offense. Fine. I can see like a world where that is one of the doors for the Chargers this season. I don't think it's likely, but I can see that scenario happening. Yeah. But you're not on the same level as the Chiefs. And if you rank Russell Wilson against the other quarterbacks in the AFC, he isn't a top 5, 6, or maybe even top 7 quarterback in the NFC. So you're already behind the 8 ball if your team's completely healthy. If half your wide receiver room isn't injured, if your running back isn't coming back from a huge injury the season before, if you're not having potential issues on your O-line, which isn't as great as it was a couple of seasons ago. So when you add all those things into the mix, and I don't know if Russ likes to be coached the way he's being coached.
No, I don't think a coach has ever told that guy, like, you're basically what he's saying is, you phony, man. Just stop talking. That's basically what he said. Like, I don't think that's ever been said to him his whole career. And not only is he feeling pressure, he might be feeling a little alienated, right? You know what I mean? Like, and look, Sean Payton is just being straight up. Like, your whole career, you've gone out of your way to try to say the right thing rather than just saying what you're really thinking or how you really feel. And people can see through that, man. Let it go. There's no way Russell Wilson is coming to practice or he's in the quarterback room, and he's not feeling a little annoyed that Sean Payton kind of came for him.
And not only does Sean Payton come from him, he told the world
that he came
right.
from him.
That
that's worse, right?
So,
right. It's not an in-house thing, man. He let everybody knows it, right? That's crazy.
So it's one thing when, there's rumors that, Peyton brought him to the side and was like, focus more on football, and then Russ can put his own spin on it. But when it comes from the man's mouth himself, now you kind of look like a punk in front of everyone, including the other 52 guys on your 53-man roster who are like, oh, Coach Payton told you, stop being fake.
That's rough.
I just want to see his first press conference. I want to see the press conference, win or lose, after the. I kind of want to see the losing press conference because I want to see if he's still rah Russ.
I want him. You know what? In a perfect world, Russ would lead them to the playoffs, maybe even to the Super Bowl, and he could do that line if they won it all. He could do the LeBron line and go, I want my damn respect. You know what I mean? That would be awesome. I don't know if Russell Wilson is capable of saying something like that, but that would be awesome.
What if he comes up to the podium after a loss and is like, guys, that 3rd and 2 play call by Coach Payton wasn't really his best.
Then you would have something to talk about. And look, you know what? I'm not so sure that Russ is not kind of feeling that kind of way right now too, right? Like he was like, actually on the goal line, we were supposed to throw the ball. That was Coach Payton's call. I audible out of that, and then I did the quarterback sneak, and it worked. So I'm just saying.
Number 6 on the bold prediction list by The Ringer is the Seattle Seahawks will win the NFC East, or not East, NFC West, Mo. That is 49er country. What do you say about that?
So I don't think that's a crazy prediction. I'm a Niners fan, and I think we're going to still make the playoffs, even with our struggles at quarterback. And I know I'm saying struggles before the season starts, but Purdy's still not 100%. Does not possess a cannon arm when he was 100%, and teams do have more film on him. I don't know if you can dink and dunk your way down the field this season. Look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, and he's every bit as good as he was when he took them and went on that run. I'd be excited for it. But I really think this season is going to be all about the defense and the run game. So I think we make the playoffs, but it would not shock me if Seattle won the division. If you ask me who's the best quarterback, it's actually Geno, right? It's Geno. So, and they have all the requisite weapons to help him out on the outside. They've got a solid enough run game. The defense can make plays. So in a bigger scheme, there's no question that I think Seattle is the biggest threat to the Niners. So I'm going to say that's a really good bold prediction. I would not be surprised if the Seahawks won the division.
I get it. I like Seattle. I think that I've disrespected Seattle a little bit just in the sense of the consistency that is that team, the consistency that is their coaching, the quality of coaching that organization has. My questions are obviously, can Geno repeat his performance from last season?
Sure.
I don't see why he can't, but he has to do it, right? Geno Smith, up until last season, and I think even Seattle fan, if you're being honest deep down inside, you weren't saying good things about Geno Smith going into last season. You really weren't. Even if you hated Russell Wilson, you are not sitting here saying that this is going to be a 9 or 10 win team with Geno Smith. You were looking at him as a bridge quarterback before you got whatever your next franchise quarterback was going to be.
True.
Now, you have every right to sing the praises of Geno Smith. He proved a lot of people wrong, and he proved that he can be more than a competent quarterback with a good team around him. My only concern is, the 49ers defense is just good. It is a good defensive unit. And I know that Bosa is holding out still, and I know that they offered him nearly $30 million or some crazy number like that, and apparently it hasn't gotten to the table. And I agree that's going to hurt them. But there's just so much talent on the San Francisco roster. And I get it. If Purdy takes a step back, it isn't going to look the same. But at the same time, when you're a dink and dunk quarterback, like that stuff is always there. Like what are you going to do? Are you going to bring people up to stop that stuff? Because if he's just closing his eyes and throwing the ball over the defense, his guys are going to catch it. So if that's what you're going to do, if you're going to be like, well, we're going to take away the dink and dunk, we're going to take away the crossing routes, we're going to bring the defensive down. Well, he has an arm decent enough to throw over you putting 8 or 9 guys in the box and have one of his receivers just go catch the ball playing center field. He can do that. The stuff that we don't know if he can do is, can he throw, the 40-yard dime down the sideline in tight man-on-man coverage? That's the stuff we're thinking he probably can't do consistently. So if you're not going to bring everyone up to take away the short, easy stuff, then he's still going to have the option to do that. And then he has the weapons out there. I agree. There's less margin of error when you play that style of offense. But we've seen Bill Belichick dime you all the way down the field, right? Nickel and dime the entire way down.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think with the weapons on that team, even if that is all their offense is, I think they're going to have enough in the regular season to win the division. Playoffs,
right.
Different story.
Right.
Once you get to the playoffs, that crap isn't going to work as consistently, and they could lose in the first round of the playoffs in their first game. But I think they're going to have enough in the regular season to get it done.
To me, it comes down to, it's really simple. Can Geno or can Purdy replicate what they did last year, right? It really comes down to that. Can they, or even let's say they both are as good as they were last year. Now you're talking about a Niners team with 11 plus wins. Maybe Seattle's got 10 or more. I mean, it's going to be a tight race. I really think overall we have more talent, but to your point, but who's going to be the better quarterback? It really comes down to that too, right? Is it going to be Geno or is it going to be Purdy? And it's kind of weird because Geno's been in the league over a decade and he had the one really big season. But when you come into this season, it's a new season and they're both kind of still unknown commodities in a strange way. So I do think Seattle has a shot, but I understand your point when you look at the overall talent, even with Bosa holding out, the Niners are the more talented team. I agree. And I think that Shanahan is one of the great play callers. He can coach up a lesser quarterback to be effective.
100%. Mo, prediction number 5 is that the Carolina Panthers are going to win the NFC South. And I was on this train. I was on the Carolina Panthers train a month ago. Mo, I have since jumped off. I am no longer on the Carolina Panthers train. I think their offensive line is atrocious. And I don't think, from what I've seen from Bryce Young thus far, and it's not him. Well, part of it's him. But part of it is the offensive line. Part of it is the play calling that I've seen so far for him. I know it was preseason, so I get that. But I'm not seeing the accuracy or the awareness that I thought he was going to have comparing him to Tua. Now, Tua doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but what Tua does have is the accuracy and the anticipation. And he's really consistent with those things, which is why when you put him in a system that feeds to his strengths, like you saw last season, he's leading the league in most QB statistics. I don't know if Young's going to have that in Carolina. And for that reason, I don't see them winning the division.
Yeah, I'm with you. That offensive line is terrible. It looks like the same kind of offensive line that David Carr had when he came into the NFL, and he just took a beating early in his career, and he just never recovered from that. I think Bryce Young will get better as the season progresses. I really do. But when I watch him play, he seems like he's playing too fast, if that makes any sense. And he's doing a thing that quarterbacks are taught not to do, but it's an instinctive thing. He's seeing the rush. So when he should be looking down the field, he's actually looking at, you know what I mean? He's looking at the guys coming at him. And a quarterback's got to kind of be able to do both. Be aware of what's coming, and you could step into the pocket, right? You could climb the pocket and look downfield, or you could just go, I'm going to take off. And he seems to be very indecisive right now. But I think that also comes with being a rookie, a first-year quarterback. There's a lot of pressure on him. So he might not start off great, but I think when it's all said and done, he'll play well.
Mo, prediction number 4, of course, we can't read someone's predictions without talking about the darlings of the NFL, and that is the New York Football Jets. But surprisingly, this has nothing, well, it indirectly has to do with Aaron Rodgers. The prediction is that star rookie wide receiver, who is now in his second year, Garrett Wilson, he is going to lead the league in receiving yards. And Mo, the reason for this prediction from this writer is that look at what he did with Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and Mike White as his quarterback, and now he has Aaron Rodgers. And before you react, and we all know my history with the New York Jets, but let me say this. When you have those guys at quarterback who are not very good quarterbacks, what do defenses do? They go after the quarterback. Why? Because they think they can get to them, number one, and number two, even if they don't get to them, they think they can make them make a mistake because they're not very good quarterbacks. Defenses are not going to do the same stuff with Aaron Rodgers. They're obviously they'll blitz him, but they're not going to game plan. Well, if we can just make Aaron throw 3 picks. Aaron doesn't throw 3 picks. Zach Wilson does, right? Joe Flacco does. So you're not going to scheme Aaron Rodgers the same way that you would scheme those other quarterbacks. So I would argue that, and I'm not saying Wilson's not going to have a good season. I think he's going to put up numbers. Do I think he's going to be the best wide receiver in the league? No. Do I think he's going to be top 3? No. Because I think defenses are going to look at this as we need to take Wilson away. He is the only real weapon that Aaron Rodgers has. Let him beat us with Lazard. Let him beat us with whoever their third Hardman, who is probably their third receiver on that team. Let him beat us with those guys. Do not let him beat us with Wilson. Wilson's still going to eat. He's still going to get his numbers. I just don't think it's going to be a situation where he's getting the ball as much as he thinks he's going to get the ball, because I think teams are going to scheme to phase him out of the game as much as possible.
I agree with everything you said, because let's not forget, when you've got Dalvin Cook in the backfield and when you've got Breece Hall, they're going to run the ball. They're going to try to balance out their offense. One of those guys is going to rush for 1,000 yards. One of them is going to be 1,000-yard back. And for him to lead the league in receiving yards, I'm going to have to guess that would be him having to have, let's say, upwards of 1,700 yards, somewhere in there. I don't think he's going to get that many. He's not going to get that many targets. He's a focal point. He is their best weapon on the outside. But like you said, when you go up against a quarterback like Rodgers, you don't pressure him a lot. You try to do it with your front line, and then you try to scheme your zones, right? You try to confuse Aaron. That's what you do with a veteran quarterback, right? You try to beat them with coverage. Well, one of the main guys, you're taking out Wilson right away, right? Automatically, he's double teamed. If you're playing a zone or a cover 2, you're still going to bring that safety up to have that corners back. So I don't think Wilson, he'll have a great season. Like you said, he'll be very productive, but he's not going to lead the league in receiving yards.
Well, we got Big Time in the house. Big Time is in the chat. What's up,
Big
Doug?
Time?
Big Time. Look at that.
The show just got better.
Just got better. All right, Mo. Number 3 prediction from the Ringer in their bold-ish NFL predictions is that Jalen Hurts is going to lead the NFL in completion percentage. I honestly don't care. I didn't get this one. Like, sure, maybe him. Tua's going to be up there. Rodgers will probably be up there. They're big completion percentage guys. I got nothing for this, Mo.
He probably will, but I mean, in the end, if you're an Eagles fans, what you want to know is that Jalen Hurts was the MVP and he led you back to the Super Bowl. That's right. More important than, I mean, that's one of those kind of things that only matters if they win it all. Then you can talk about it. But if they come up short or don't win it all, who cares?
Yeah, there was a stretch last year over like 10 games where I think Mahomes was completing like 73% of his passes. Like, it's obviously you want your quarterback completing passes. Like, you would prefer them being in the high 60s as opposed to like the low 50s. I get it. But at the end of the day, I think it is what it is. I don't really care who leads the league in completion percentage.
I'm more into who makes the big pass when it's most needed. Correct. There's a lot of guys, when you look in the box score, they've thrown for over 300 yards, and it even says they were 23 of 31. It all looks very good. But those 8 incompletions came when they needed it most. You know what I mean? I'm more, if a guy throws for 55% completion percentage, but he throws 2 big TDs late when it matters most, that's what I'm looking for.
Big Time said that Herbert will be there too. I agree. Herbert is also a big completion percentage guy. And Herbert's a great example. I mean, a guy who puts up numbers, who puts up big numbers in the completion percentage game, but what does he actually accomplish in the league? His numbers look great, but they haven't got a playoff win yet. So that's another example of I don't care about completion percentage. I care about winning divisions, getting into the playoffs, and then winning playoff games. And if while you're doing that, you're completing 71% of your passes, great. But if you have to complete 66% of your passes to get there, I'm okay with 66% too.
To be fair, though, Herbert's also competing against his coach. So I'm just saying, like the other team has a 12th man.
Mo, let's be honest. If you are the coach and you have the ball in overtime and a tie sends you both to the playoffs, do you take the tie?
If the tie sends us both to the playoffs,
Yep.
then I take the tie. I'm going to the
Me
playoffs.
too.
I want to go to the playoffs. I want to go to the playoffs.
I don't care if the Raiders go to the playoffs too. I want to guarantee that I get there. So we can take the 100%, which is we tie and we go to the playoffs.
Right.
Or we can roll the dice and see if we can win the game because that's the right. Stop it. Take me to the playoffs. Which, by the way, they didn't go to the playoffs. So I guess we were right in that situation. Number 2, we're down to our last 2, Mo. One is a prediction for the MVP of the league, and the other is the prediction for the Super Bowl winner. Where do you want to go first, Super Bowl or MVP?
Oh, go MVP.
MVP is going to be Trevor Lawrence.
Sunshine's a good pick. That's a good pick. He's slated to have a really good year. He's got weapons around him. ATN's going to take pressure off him with that run game. They're set up to be a very, very good football team. Sunshine's he's gonna put up big numbers. That's a good pick. I was gonna go to the default, but since we're trying to be creative, I'll leave the default alone.
Right.
If he's healthy, I'm gonna go Joe Burrow.
Big Time, I agree. It is Mahomes against the field, but if you had to pluck someone from the field and kind of volunteer them as tribute as someone who could take down Mahomes. I like the Lawrence pick. I like their schedule. Their division isn't great. I like what they have around him on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I like the weapons that he has. I like what I saw in his jump to was year 2 last year or year 3? No, year 2. So I like the jump we saw there. I like everything they're building with Trevor Lawrence. I also like the fact that he stays healthy. He hasn't, knock on wood, he hasn't had any big major injury issues, unlike, a Lamar Jackson or some of these other guys that, tend to be hurt a lot. So I like the pick. I also like the Joe Burrow pick. I also like the Lamar Jackson pick in the sense of Lamar just does crazy Lamar things. I don't know if Lamar can play 17 games, but dear God, no. If Lamar played 17 games, his numbers are going to be crazy. So that would automatically put him into the MVP conversation just because he's going to have over 1,000 yards rushing. He's probably going to have over 4,000 yards passing and touchdowns galore and highlights galore. I just don't know if he can get through 17 games.
As a fan, I hope so.
I hope so too. But I have no issue with the Trevor Lawrence pick. But if I gun to my head, $1 million briefcase on the table.
Oh, you're taking Mahomes.
I'm taking Mahomes every time.
That's the default. I wanted to get away from the default, but like Big Time said, you start with Mahomes and then you work your way back with everybody else. I just wanted to be different, and I think so. By being different, I thought the closest guy to Mahomes is Joe Burrow.
I like it. I like it a lot. And then we rounded out with it was technically their number 2, but we made it number 1, and that was their Super Bowl pick, which is not the default. It is not the Kansas City Chiefs. It is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Wow.
Which means that Burrow would have to most likely knock off Mahomes, because I don't see anybody else doing it. He would have to knock off Mahomes in the playoffs. I'm okay with that.
That's not a crazy pick.
I think Mahomes is, and I know that this is just going to feed into Kansas City Chief fan Mo, but I think Mahomes is that guy that every year he's in the AFC Championship game. I can see that happening. I can see him having, LeBron had that streak of how many years in a row? Did he go to the finals?
To the finals?
Yeah. So I can see Mahomes being the guy where every year they're in the AFC Championship game. They win some, they lose some. They're not in the Super Bowl every year, but I can see him always being there, one game away, for the next 5 or 6 years. He's going to lose a couple.
Sure.
And I can see Burrow being one of those guys that knocks him off. Burrow's already gotten to the Super Bowl before, so I can see that happening.
Yeah, well, he's going to, like you said, he's going to lose a couple. Burrow's going to have a year where he wins it all, and then Mahomes will come back and Mahomes will win again. Like he's going to win more than he loses, but he's going to lose some. But I'm with you. He's going to be the constant presence in the AFC. Like, I don't know if they're going to win it all, but Kansas City is going to be in the AFC Championship game, right? Like, they're always going to be in the picture. If you want to go to the Super Bowl, you have to go through the Chiefs.
Just like it was with Tom Brady and the Patriots.
For the longest time.
There were years where they got knocked out early in the playoffs, but you knew if you wanted to get to the Super Bowl on the AFC side, you were going to have to go through Brady. And it was usually the teams that went through Brady that got there the years that he didn't get there. So Mahomes has gladly taken over that torch, and he is now the gatekeeper of the Super Bowl.
The new gatekeeper, right.
For the AFC. Mo, what a great hump day show on a Wednesday morning here, Sports Empire Network. It was great having Jory on the show this morning. Shout out to everyone who came to the chat. Big Time was in the chat. Marlon was up in there. We had Coach. We had Freddie. We had Jory. We had Lennon up in there for a little bit. I think Kyle made an appearance in the chat this morning. Dez was in there. We appreciate everyone coming to the chat. We appreciate everyone making us a part of your morning, getting your morning started off with Chris and Mo here on Sports Empire Network. And guess what, Mo? We are back here again tomorrow for the start of the NFL season.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to be previewing the Chiefs and Lions on tomorrow's show. We are going to make our final predictions of who is going to win all of the divisions and who is going to get into the playoffs. Mo, we have to lock them in tomorrow. Tomorrow's the official lock. We can't make any more changes. So no more edits.
Everything we've done up to this point, which we've already done like 20. This one right here tomorrow, guys, everybody in there, make your picks. It's permanent. You can't get off that bus. So if you're on the Detroit Lion train, you got to stay on there once it's locked in tomorrow.
If you have Travis Kelce in your fantasy football league, please do not walk into traffic yet. It is going to be all right. I think no games have been played yet. We don't know the situation yet. Hopefully you got a backup tight end. Just start them for week 1, and we'll see where we are for week 2, okay? Deep breaths, everyone. Mo, close us out.
Hey, guys, thanks for everybody that's in the chat, everybody that's listening. Keep checking out the great content on Sports Empire Network. Last night, if you're a wrestling fan, or as Key was saying, a wrestling fan, we had Line in the Sand, a great show. There are great shows, great content on Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
We'll see you here tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Start your morning with us on The Morning Show.